In a small one-bedroom apartment in Tokyo back in 1987, a man named Kazuo Matsumoto began his own religion. It started with yoga and meditation classes that he called Om Immortal Mountain Wizard Association. That's a mouthful that sounds a whole lot better in Japanese. A whole lot of people began following this new religion, a lot of them from elite universities around Japan, and it became known as a religion for the elite. It became an official religious organization under Japanese law, which afforded it certain protections in 1989. What did this new religion entail? Well, it was and is a syncretic religion. That means it borrows from all kinds of other traditions. A little Indian Buddhism, a little Tibetan Buddhism, some Japanese Buddhism, a smattering of Hinduism, and some Christian millennialism. Let's not forget the yoga and the writings of Nostradamus. Now, when I say religion, this was a cult. It was most definitely, most clearly a cult, and a doomsday cult at that. Here are a few highlights. Matsumoto declares himself to be Christ, the Lamb of God, and the only enlightened master in Japan. Christianity meets Buddhism there. He also said that he could take all of the sins of mankind upon himself, Christianity. He said he could transfer his power to his followers and take away all of their misdeeds. This new religion believed that before the 21st century would see the light, there would be a final conflict that destroyed mankind, except its followers, of course. They described this as a nuclear Armageddon, which is sort of Nostradamus meets Christianity, and said that the United States would start World War III, attack Japan, and send the world reeling toward its fiery end. Everyone, all of us, were to die, and all of the followers of Matsumoto would survive. They would have to, of course, proselytize all of this. What good is the word if you're not out there spreading it after all? At some point in time, Matsumoto changes his name to Shoko Asahara. Asahara is an aristocratic name in Japan, so old Shoko thought that fit him better than the more common Matsumoto. Shoko means to offer incense. So back to Asahara's beliefs and teachings. He would swear that Armageddon would begin in 1997. He referred to the U.S. as the beast from the book of Revelation, and while he awaited the big event, he read a lot of writing, mostly conspiracy theories, about Freemasons, of course, Jews, naturally, and the British royal family, because why not? In his teachings, he slowly moved the new religion toward some very twisted, very violent ideas. Buddhism, at least East Asian Buddhism, has 3 ages of the Dharma. There's a former, a middle, and a latter day of the Dharma. Those 3 ages cycle. The latter age is when all of the world just degenerates and things suck and the world can't be saved any longer and it has to end, to be revitalized again when the former age restarts the whole cycle. They combined this with the idea that Buddhists could transcend at the time of their death. You don't need to fully understand the concepts to understand it this way. The world is headed for doom. People can be released from all that and be enlightened when they die. If all the people die, which they should because doom is on its way, then people are actually saved. It's a bit of a twisted logic. The new religion, by this time known as Om Shinrikyo, or Supreme Truth of the Universe. They begin to believe that they should go ahead and bring on doom, save all the people's spirits by killing them, and let the new age of the Dharma begin, where they are the only survivors and they will rule the world for 1,000 years or so. He wrote all this down in a book along with teaching it, and it's how religious scholars and experts have unraveled what this cult was up to and what they believed. So now we have doom on the horizon, and a belief that the people of the world need to die to make doom end and a new age begin. That's troubling all by itself, believing that, but the cult would take it 1 or maybe 5 steps further. They get all up in the missionary about all of this and start publishing cartoons and comics and pamphlets. Asahara and his top disciplines are all about the recruiting. They grow, quite large in fact. They begin to claim they could cure illnesses, achieve life goals, and that really took off. They were suddenly the fastest growing religious group in the history of Japan. They used LSD, shock therapy, and pretty painful techniques to gain control over the bodies and the minds of their followers. Then they began to recruit from the Japanese military and the Tokyo police. That would be important for their later plans. Round about 1989, people start calling a cult, and talk begins to swirl around Om Shinrikyo. They deceive their recruits. They hold cult members against their will. They force members to donate money, and they murdered a cult member who tried to leave in February 1989. None of those things are good omens for the times to come. Not a single one. In October 1989, Tsutsumi Sakamoto was an anti-cult lawyer, and he was threatening a lawsuit against the cult. So negotiations begin between the cult and the lawyer, but they fail, as they were likely always going to. Cults don't like to change their culty ways, really. So Sakamoto gives an interview to a TV station. They're supposed to protect him as a source for their story, but they don't. They go to the cult and play the interview for them. The cult gets the TV show to cancel their plans to broadcast the story. Just a month later, well, what happens? Sakamoto, his wife, and his child go missing. The police have no leads at the time, but everyone knew what was up and who was responsible. Keep that in mind. Not just the man they had the beef with, but his wife and his child. His child. Along with disappearing people, including a child, they were also extorting people. They opened hospitals, and they would get patients in, and then charge them massive bills to be released. They had lists of critics that they considered disappearing, including the heads of Buddhist sects and a cartoonist named Yoshinori Kobayashi who satirized them. An assassination attempt is made on him in 1993. And you know they have to step it up a notch, right? They begin wiretapping people. They have telecoms uniforms, telecoms equipment, and even their own manual on how to wiretap. Then another notch. They have scientists. Those scientists put some Bacillus anthracus in some liquid. What is that, you ask? Well, it's the bacteria that causes anthrax infection. Deadly, deadly stuff. So the cult has the anthrax bacteria suspended in liquid. Lots and lots of it. They climb up to the top of a cooling tower on their headquarters, and they just start spraying their concoction all over the neighborhood. Thankfully, their scientists weren't the brightest, and this is not how you start a deadly anthrax epidemic. The liquid dispersed into the air, and a whole lot of neighbors complained about the stench, but not a single soul, thankfully, was infected. And so they decide, well, anthrax just isn't our thing. Instead, they decide that nerve agents are the way to go. They choose 2 particularly deadly ones, sarin and VX, and they start manufacturing the stuff. Cult actually tested the deadliness of their sarin production on sheep at a farm in Western Australia. So they practice a little with the sarin and the VX by trying to assassinate and actually assassinating a number of people over the next 2 years. During that time, they also broke into a factory in Hiroshima to try to steal documents related to military tanks and artillery. And this group is just getting scary. So one night in June 1994, they drove a refrigerated truck into the city of Matsumoto in Nagano. They approached the homes of judges who were overseeing a lawsuit that they were probably going to lose, and they released a cloud of sarin near the judges' homes. 8 people would die and 500 more would be injured. Police did not suspect the cult, though. They targeted another local man, Yoshiyuko Kuono, who was innocent. They attacked a man who helped cult members leave, injuring him. Then a man they suspected to be a spy, well, they attacked him and killed him. Then they killed another man who protested against cult, another who was the brother of an escaped member. They were just going to town with the VX and with the sarin. That made police very interested in the cult. March 1995. Of course, some of the cult members were cops, so the cult was tipped off. They tried and failed to manufacture assault rifles, so they had an idea to distract police from any thoughts of a raid. On March 20th, 1995, cult members released sarin gas into 5 different trains in the Tokyo subway system, essentially a huge but enclosed tunnel. They killed 13 commuters, 54, and otherwise harmed somewhere between 980 and 6,000 people. The attack did not work to stop the raids, though. Police conducted simultaneous raids on cult compounds all over the country. They were done. No, not yet. 192 cult members were arrested, and 1 was killed in the raids. The police found explosives, chemical weapons, and a Russian military helicopter, along with the sarin, the plans to make assault rifles, the VX, evidence of the anthrax experiments. They had enough components to make enough sarin to kill 4 million people. They found a meth lab and LSD production and even truth serum. They also found millions in U.S. currency and gold. There were even prison cells containing cult prisoners when that raid happened. That July, there was another attack on the subway. Devices were found that would have released enough cyanide gas to kill 10,000 commuters. More cult members were arrested. The chief of the National Police was shot near his house. He survived, and we're not quite sure who did that. Then the head of the Ministry of Science was stabbed to death in public, in front of reporters and cameras. We can't be sure why he was killed in that way. There was even a copycat who tried to hijack a Boeing 747. So anyway, Japanese police and authorities, well, they finally find old Asahara hiding in a wall of a cult building. The same day, a parcel bomb is sent to the governor of Tokyo, injuring the man's secretary in just gruesome fashion. They now have Asahara, though, and most of his disciples, and they put them to trial. They're convicted of a ton of misdeeds, including the subway attack, and 13 in total, including their leader, were sentenced to death. They appeal, they lose. 6 more were sentenced to life, and another 169 received lesser sentences than life. The government stripped the cult of its status as a religious organization, and it declared bankruptcy. All that seizing of property and paying for lawyers really took a toll. They split up after that, the remaining members. They are under strict surveillance and are deemed to be terrorist organizations by many nations. The groups are now known as Aleph and Hikari no Wa. On June 6, 2018, Asahara and 6 others were executed, and the remaining 6 were executed on July 26, 2018. So how much has changed? Well, raids, crackdowns, and inspections have shown that there continue to be very concerning activity, and on New Year's Day 2019, a man drove into pedestrians in a narrow street in Tokyo in retaliation for the execution of the cult members. That injured 9, and thankfully, it took no lives. Of all of the nations who consider the cult to be terroristic, only the US has lifted their designation because they now consider the cult to be basically defunct. Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying these videos and want more, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any videos. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it.